Reach finally hit Heart of Thorns. I am really interested. I am also very interesting, but I'm really interested to know what his take is about Heart of Thorns. His take over original Guild Wars 2 was, I would say, overall negative, understandably so. I don't necessarily agree with him about the Zaitan fight, but that's fine. It's cool to disagree. But let's see what he has to say about Heart of Thorns and how I honestly think Heart of Thorns story was better, conclusion was worse. Or like the end fight for Heart of Thorns was worse than the end fight for Guild Wars 2. That being said, I understand the meta fight for Heart of Thorns, the end fight, the meta fight, that is like a whole, like I think it's like a 3 or 4 raid fight, like people are outside fighting Zaitan and you are inside. I think that is really fucking cool. Sorry, I just had so much to eat. Ooh. Okay, I think that is really cool. I'm talking about just like from the story. I feel like the Zaitan fight was more climactic, story-wise, than the Mordremoth fight. But I think they were both fine for what they were. Let's see what he has to say.
Have you guys ever gone into an MMO expansion, like in your life, and just after 8 hours?
Have I ever gone? Yes, I have. I've gone to MMO expansion before.
Hours of playing, not understood what the hell is going on?
Yes.
Well, that was my experience.
Yes. Many times. Many times. But I would say Heart of Thorns is very chaotic. Yes.
The Heart of Thorns expansion. So many messages. You got to start it. Get going. Get into it. Don't do Living World. Just jump into Heart of Thorns.
Oh, bullshit. You have to do Living World. Living World 1 and 2 pretty much sets up. Like, I don't know why anyone would recommend skipping Living World, especially if you just wanna, the story.
Well, we did all the Living World, so we could appreciate the story, and I got blue balled to the Ends of Time, and then we jumped into the Heart of Thorns expansion. Yeah. I was so hyped for this because I watched the trailer, I looked at some of the feature releases, and this is when the raids came in. I hadn't seen a raid yet, only a strike. Yeah. So that was very exciting for me, as our Project MMO mission is to clear the raids and understand how the endgame processes work in all these MMOs. So in we went. Oh boy. First things first. How beautiful is the Verdant Bank zone? Good God. I spent the first few minutes just looking around. This has to be one of the best intro plateaus I've seen to a new zone in a really long time, if not ever. I spent the first couple of minutes.
Overall, I don't like forest zones, so I can't relate, but I can appreciate that it was fucking... It looked very alive in compared to other zones, yes. I'm much more of a open fields type of guy, like mountains and stuff like that.
It's just looking around. Torn from the sky. Whoa!
Yep.
Stay sharp, people. Mordremoth hit the pact hard. It's up to us to pick up the pieces.
Oh, this is cool.
Yep. Especially when you did the, what's it called? The Living World. You know exactly what the fuck is going on.
That is really spooky. That is giving me vibes from Outer Wilds. I think they felt pissed off about how their story went in the base game. Like, look at this. This is so much better.
Rocks! OG rocks!
Even for the Battle for Lion's Arch,
you're missed.
So much better. The atmosphere, the fires, the crashes that have occurred following the Living World story, and then this thorny, oppressive world where, it reminded me of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Many of you younger guys might not have seen that, but the kids get shrunk down and they end up in their garden, and what they see is nightmarish. It's awful when you look at the garden from that side, and that's what I felt like. I felt like a tiny, minuscule piece of this puzzle looking out upon just a hellscape. I compare it to the Maw, which was supposed to be a hellscape and looked nothing as dangerous as this place looked, with its thorny brambles that were 4, 5, 17 times as thick as I was.
I think, so here's why the Maw doesn't, like, all you really need to add here is more stuff in the skybox, like, armies or something like that, right? Like things coming out of the ground, like hands or whatever, right? Just like a little bit semantic, nothing that is actually dangerous to the player, but yeah, it just felt desolate. It felt like there's nothing going on here. It's like, imagine ending up in an empty desert. You don't feel afraid of the desert. You feel afraid because there's like nothing there, right? That's kind of what it is. But it's like, if you are in a survival game and like if you're in a scary game and you're in an open zone, I imagine playing what are they called? I don't know, like a Exorcist, right? But you're in the open desert, you can see everything. That's not scary, right? It's like the vibe was way off, obviously.
Looked with its thorny brambles that were 4, 5, 17 times as thick as I was, stretching high into the sky and down into the valleys below. So I was pretty excited about that. Now, I went into this based on my decades of experiencing MMO expansions, not just World of Warcraft, but Final Fantasy, Neocron, all these MMOs that I played. And so I got started with the story. That makes sense to me. I've got a mission, I've got a quest, it should get going. And so off I went on my story. And, okay, the next little while is going to sound like some complaints, but stick around to the end of the video.
I had plenty of complaints about Heart of Thorns.
Very frustrated. I opened the map up because, of course, it's Guild Wars 2. A lot of the stuff is map completion.
You don't know where to fucking go. You don't know where the paths are. You need the fucking masteries for the glider for most of the stuff. You need the mushroom stuff. Yeah, as a first time playthrough experience, it felt really fucking annoying traversing the map. But that being said, I feel like it would be even more engaging if he didn't have the mount. If he forced himself, and I wish I also forced myself not to use the mount, I feel like I would probably appreciate the zone a bit more. I would be very frustrated in many times, but I would appreciate the zone more because you just really ran through a lot of the dangerous stuff.
So many things all over the map to do. Things to do.
Yeah.
All grayed out. I spent the first couple of hours just kind of wandering around.
Wait. Should you be able to see this without the plugin? I'm not even sure. But I feel like you shouldn't be able to see any of this. Maybe this, because it's pretty close, but like any of this should not be seen in my opinion.
All grayed out. I spent the first couple of hours just kind of wandering around with like escort missions and pick up supplies and kill things. And I can see all these people having fun. This zone is still massively populated.
Dude, Heart of Thorns is by far the most populated zone. Heart of Thorns zones, especially like the first map, was way more populated than all of Path of Exile zones combined, probably. Obviously, it depends on the time, but like I've seen people in Path of Fire. Don't get me wrong, I've seen plenty of people, but Heart of Thorns, in my opinion, is by far the most popular, and I feel like because of how hard everything there is, they're just more group forming for all the content in there to do like the hero point stuff, because you can't solo them. You can solo the hero points in Path of Fire, and probably in End of Dragons, but like in Heart of Thorns, you couldn't solo shit.
All these years later, and they're all doing stuff, and I can't take a part in a goddamn thing. I travel, because what I started to do is travel to explore a little bit. And it's like, oh, this is a bouncy mushroom. Yeah, you can't use that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's updrafts around. Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's these things that.
But I think that's a good thing. I feel like all of that is actually a really good thing, because later on when you can go back and explore those areas and stuff like that. When it's like the bouncy mushroom is just like a shortcut to a place you can reach, it's not as interesting. But when like these bouncy mushrooms get you to points that you could not reach before without them, I feel like that is actually pretty interesting.
That are going up. People are getting on helicopters, for Christ's sake. You can't do that. You're too poor. You're a poor person. You can't do that. And I'm like, God damn it, man. I've exposed this new expansion, and all these new features are here. I can see the raid, by the way. I can see it. I don't know what to do with it, because I didn't understand.
I didn't see where the raid is.
A key fundamental thing. This is already endgame. There's no leveling.
Yep.
This is already endgame. Now, Guild Wars 2 does bend the rules, its own rules a little bit. Like the Holy Trinity, right? The tank, healer, DPS. Classic combo of MMOs.
Well,
after doing the strike at the end of Living World, I realized that, well, that's not entirely true. They did bend that a little bit. Yes, there are healers.
Yeah.
Yes, you can choose people who to tank, who are better at it, things like that. You can absolutely do that. Those things do exist in their own form. And
one of my favorite things with the bouncy mushrooms, when it's like a bouncy mushroom like this that goes over a massive area, you can actually glide midway to try and reach a different area. I feel like that's really cool interaction. That it's very small, but I feel like it's really cool because you can just not wait for it to land and you can glide to where you need to go instead.
And I'm already level capped. But then the story, I did like maybe 3 or 4 missions, something like that. And then the story went, oh, okay, you now need to just kind of grind out a mastery. And the mastery was a new feature that came with Heart of Thorns. So it makes sense that they want you to engage with the system, check it out and do stuff. But I'm surrounded by things I couldn't do. And then it's saying, yeah, you just kind of need to grind out these not particularly exciting missions. You've got to defend the camp. You've got to do this stuff. And then the reward for doing those things is things you can't take part in, right? That's what I was presented with. Is like, do the crappy missions, and then you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Earn your exalted markings mastery to continue the story. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly the same thing I said. I don't mind that you need masteries to do certain things. I feel like that's fine. One thing that I didn't like is that you couldn't do these masteries until you got to a point of the story, and that basically it takes you away from the story for literally some of the masteries, because like it depends on the events and stuff like that, and they take too long to fill, which by the way has been nerfed. So it used to be a lot longer. That experience sucks for a new player. I am sure when Heart of Thorns came out, it wasn't a big deal because you would have so many players in the zone to do all of this, and it's like, even though the percentage was smaller, you were participating with a lot of people. Therefore, you had a lot more fun. But the way Heart of Thorns is right now for a new player is really fucking annoying. Don't really feel that in Path of Fire because you get so much mastery XP while doing the story that unlocking the next mastery you need in order to advance the story is you probably already unlocked it. So, for example, when the only one I had a problem with was the Raptor, and that's because I forgot to make sure that I'm leveling my Raptor. Jesus Christ, too much food. Yeah, I had a feast today. Whew. I ate today for like the whole week. Anyways, I think I had like a 5,000 calorie meal. Fuck my life, I'm fat. Anyways, that's damn, changing the subject. So in Path of Fire, for example, I didn't have this problem at all. Path of Fire, only because I forgot to level the Raptor, but like, you level the Raptor, and you can continue the story, you get the rabbit. Now, as long as you don't remember that to make sure that the mastery that is leveling is the rabbit, by the time you need the rabbit jump, the extra high jump and stuff like that, it's already there. You already got the mastery, right? And obviously, as long as you pick up the masteries on the way and all that stuff, right? There is a bit of exploring, but it was a lot smoother. Heart of Thorns, I feel like was, you know, the experiment was there, and they're like, oh, okay, we need to do this. In my opinion, they should really up the mastery XP for the early levels of the mastery, just so it doesn't take so long to unlock the mastery, because it's literally, okay, in order to continue the story, you need to get this mastery, but now to get this, you couldn't get it before, but now it's going to take you an hour to 2 hours just to get this mastery. It depends on the events that are in the area and how many players there are completing these events, because if you can complete the events faster, you can go on to other events. I had so many events that I would do the event and the other events would end by then, so I couldn't get that XP anymore. Right? But if there were more players doing this event, then I could get the XP. Or, for example, the event failed, like for example, defend a base, right, that you're getting. You would get a lot of XP if you can get that base to defend it and get it and keep it at level 4, for example. You would get a lot more XP for a master, at least I think, as far as I noticed, or you at least enjoy it more than if you fail the event and then it's like, well, you got almost nothing out of it. Yeah, exactly. Bro, I feel like I did the exact same thing. Stretch and yell.
So I was definitely getting a little frustrated with this, and I was playing around with it, and eventually I did unlock my first mastery. It actually didn't take long. It was just the fact that it took maybe 30 minutes.
It didn't take long because he had his army helping him.
And it's just the fact that I couldn't do anything, and,
Yeah.
and the story hard stopped. It's like you can't.
Well, I don't want to say it as if like every time his army helped him, but let's be real. Most of the times, probably he would get into a group with his Twitch viewers, and they would do it together, knock him out, and get the XP fast, so he can continue the story. Which, by the way, I'm not holding it against him. Obviously, if I had the chance, I would do it too, because grinding the masteries just was not fun as a whole.
Continue the story until you do a mastery. I was like, oh, okay, so you're just kind of forcing me to go and do these sort of mini quests now. All right.
Yeah.
Not particularly great. But I also want to go back to the mindset of the people on day one who wouldn't have been able to access anything else as well. And they're all probably thinking like, what's going on up there? What are these helicopters? What's happening here? We can't do it yet. We need to get going with some stuff. So eventually I unlocked gliding, and I immediately went to the store and purchased...
I mean, understandable. A lot of the gliders look fantastic. I still have the base one. I'm trying not to spend money if I can.
The best glider in the game, unquestionably. Anybody who denies this is just a liar. And of course, the mastery.
Like honestly, I don't want to spend that much money on Guild Wars 2. I'm not, like on any game really. I don't even know if I'll get into it. And I'm like, it's not that I can't afford it, but I'd rather have my money saved for like other shit that I would need more than a cosmetic in a game. If I was rich, if this was my job, I would probably spend a lot more money. Obviously, yeah.
Sets essentially new leveling protocols. So although the actual character levels have stayed the same, you have got the system on the side where you can level other things which are called masteries. And the gliding one is the one from the Verdant Bank where I was, and it was okay. You've unlocked gliding now, but you kind of got hobo flying. And you need to level all the other masteries in order for your gliding to be better, which is a lot of grinding out. And after the start I'd had in the zone, I had no interest in that whatsoever. But the story had unlocked a bit more for me. Okay, so
I think that's fine. Not like I almost never use glider at this point, especially after you get the glider mount. It's like, why would I even, the only time I glide is like, oh fuck, I'm about to die. Right, that's about it. Like if I need to go straight down off a hill, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll use the glider if I forget to use the mount. Like I don't think glider is that important.
So I've actually got something I can go and do now. And I did. I went back into the story as I would do in any other MMO and carried on. And very quickly, like 30 minutes after that,
the
zone came to an end. And it was moving me on to the next zone, which is kind of atypical. If I think of something like World of Warcraft, that's exactly what would happen. I would follow through the story, I would complete the quests, and then it would take me off to the next zone whenever I was ready. And because there's no levels to speak of, then it's just keep going. And I was like, okay. And I looked back at the map before I went off to the next zone. I looked back, and I realized I've only uncovered like half of it. Or at least what I thought was half of it. That would be more accurate description of what... At the time, I thought I've only seen half this zone. There's still half of it uncovered, but I didn't really enjoy this zone. I wasn't having any fun. I was just denied to be able to do a ton of stuff. So I was like, I'm ready to move on. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but whatever.
And I think that's fine. Like, it doesn't matter that you didn't unlock it, because let's say this. If Heart of Thorns was the current expansion that was out, there was nothing else after Heart of Thorns, you would have a lot of things to do when you finish the story and you start doing endgame. You would have time to explore. You would have time to find out all these nooks and crannies in the zones. And I think that's fine. Like having something to do after the game is over. Obviously, that's not his goal, but I feel like a lot of players, when they were playing Heart of Thorns at first, and they did the quest and they got to, they finished the story, stuff like that. Yeah, one of the things they'll have to do is, or want to do, is explore.
So I move into the next
zone. See what they missed.
And it happens again.
Yeah.
It happens again. I open the map. There's loads of stuff going on. There's watchtowers. There's base camps. There's all this kind of stuff going on. There's a big central city. And I can't take part in anything. And after a couple of missions, once again, the game says, okay, that's enough story for you for right now.
Yeah, I hated that.
You now need to grind out a mastery level before you can continue. And I was like, God damn it. And again, the missions were kind of lackluster.
I did get some heat when I complained about that, but it is what it is. This is just my experience. Clearly, Preach had a similar experience with it.
It was basic stuff. It was escort quests. It was find this missing doctor, find this missing weapons.
It's not a game-quitting thing, but it was definitely frustrating.
Smith. Things like that to get me back into the mix of things. I was like, oh my God, this is like... And in the back of my mind, I'm streaming this, obviously, and I'm trying not to, like, really badmouth the expansion, because I've only been playing it now for maybe 4 or 5 hours at this point. And part of me is like, I don't think I want to continue with this. Like, that thought has entered my head. Like, I'm not having any fun. I'd rather play something else at the moment than be cock-teased with all this stuff and just end up.
And that's what I'm saying. The mental fatigue, like everything together in Heart of Thorns, the mental fatigue was just overwhelming. Like, and by mental fatigue, I don't just mean like, it's like, oh my God, I have to calculate this and I have to think about that. It's not that. It's the taking you out of the story. Like, you get into something and the game tells you, no, you gotta do something else. The combat taking too long, like the combat itself just being fatiguing because of like all the stuff, and it's cool here and there. But yes, Heart of Thorns was very, very exhausting. And I think Heart of Thorns took me by far the longest to complete, mostly because of this. There were times when I was like, fuck, man, like, I don't know if I want to do this, right? And I was happy that I did, because after Heart of Thorns, everything gets so much better. But it's not to say that Heart of Thorns is bad. It's just there's some very frustrating things about it on the first playthrough basis.
Grinding and grinding to level masteries so I can play around with this stuff. That sounds just really boring. That sounds not great. As much as I enjoy the story, and I do, the story is actually getting much, much better now in Guild Wars 2. It's something I'm invested in. And then what happened is, and mini spoilers here for people who haven't played this, so just bear that in mind. They killed off 2 characters just completely unceremoniously to the point that I just felt nothing, even though I enjoyed those characters. They just died.
Yeah, well, the Ayer death, the reason it didn't hit hard is because she was a friend of the main character, like of your character, but you never really had anything to do with her. Like, realistically, you had like 2 conversations with her, right? Unless you played a Nord, then you converse with her a bit more, like 1 to 30. I believe she's the one you're talking to, kind of like Thackeray for the humans. But like overall, I would say, yeah, you don't really care about her. Same with like how I didn't care about Traherne dying at the end. You don't really like, these are not characters that follow you around, right? If Rox died, for example, Rox just suddenly just fucking died, you would be devastated.
Right.
I like my
Is that a
chances
dinosaur?
better this way.
This is his expression is what I was feeling inside, but what I was saying is like, this fucking bitch, kill her.
Rude.
Yeah, rude, basically. But exactly the same reaction. Exactly the same. Outplayed. Get fucked. Yeah.
Oh, we're not killing Air, surely.
I did like her Ayer's expression when she's like, she realized she's dead, you know? But she'll die standing up on her own terms. Yeah.
Why is her face all goofy?
Yeah, it was a bit off, yeah.
Yeah, we're killing her. Okay.
Yeah, we're killing her. Yep, we're killing her.
Where was Bram jumping in front of that? What an odd choice to kill off Air so early in the expansion.
Just let me say
But
goodbye to
again,
him.
this honestly, I understand what he says, like what an odd choice to kill her off. But at the same time, think about his first impression of like Guild Wars 2, where he said, "Oh man, I just noticed," and I actually don't like when people do it too. But yeah, let's move me over here, I guess. Sorry about that. I noticed, I see streamers do it all the time, and I was like, fuck, man, like, stop blocking the original guy. It just takes away from it. Even though you could kind of see through me, yeah, I don't like it. Sorry about that. But to his early point about Guild Wars 2, where it's like, you're introduced with all these characters, and you don't know anything about them, they're not memorable. Air was one of these characters. She's memorable, I'll give her that. But other than that, like, you don't care about her. And honestly, I forgot her name multiple times up until this point. I was like, oh yeah, this is and then they said, and it's like, oh, that's Air. Yeah. Okay.
Not until I see more drama.
It just seems so abrupt and random, right? We didn't even get a refresher of with Air and
whatever
Failing
time you
before
need.
this. But I guess they're following
Check
straight
as
from
soon as
Living
you
World
can.
Season 2.
Yeah. Did he put the music on? Yeah, he did. Okay. Nice. Respect.
We lost a lot of good soldiers in the past few days, guys.
Yeah. Hey, this is war, man.
Listen up. I need a volunteer.
It
to
was
stay
too
behind.
sudden. I don't feel
Ram will
anything.
get his time,
Yeah.
but he needs someone to watch his back.
Yep.
I was like, what the hell just happened?
But that's fine.
I think this happened in the previous zone, but at the same point, I was like, wait, we're just killing off those characters? And it felt like a lie. It felt like, oh, they're going to...
Which is fantastic, because he actually thought we're gonna kill them all off. Which we didn't.
come back, and one of them kind of does. And I was like, did their voice actors just not get the job or something? They just like wiped these characters out. And I was like, is this what
Well,
we're
I
doing
believe
now?
Air's voice actor did multiple characters. I think like she might even still be in the game with someone else. So
killing off these characters. Like, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to kill off story characters,
yeah.
but certainly from my back history, it's like these characters needed a more ceremonious send off than what just happened. And
I think it
like
played
more
up
annoyed
well
now.
in the end.
I'm like, okay, this is more annoying. So I'm walking around the second zone. Everything's the same. I'm joining in. There's, again, very heavily populated. Lots of people doing things. And I happened to stumble into the city because I was exploring. I stumbled into this central city. And while I was there, a big event started. A war, an attack on the city.
Oh.
These massive Goliath.
I remember this. Lay saved my life with this because this actually made it so you can't progress the story. And Lay was in an instance where Lay is one of the viewers, one of my favorite viewers at this point, because she gives me all these references to watch and stuff and explains a lot of the game. So thank you very much, Lay. Shout out. And yeah, she basically let me party with her to change my zone so I could continue the story. Massive props. Thank you, Lay.
Elite monsters spawned. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is happening? And then suddenly these walls appeared that needed flamethrowers and turrets. And I swear to you, like a waterfall falling from the sky. And it reminded me very much of when a dam breaks in a movie. Like the Fall of Isengard, when the dam broke and just suddenly people just came crushing down the sides of the city. Because the city is like sunken into the ground. Hundreds of people just flooding down. I'm like, what the hell is happening here? This is MMOs. This is gaming. This is something going on. And I had no clue what was happening. So I'm trying to figure out, I suddenly get this progress bar of north, south, east, and west towers and doors need to be dealt with.
Is this the meta event?
And I can see the health going down. And I'm like, well, west isn't. So how the hell do I get around there? And I'm trying to find...
This isn't the meta event.
Typical to how we started this channel is how do you become the baller? And the baller is the guy who is doing a lot of stuff, making success for the group, but like people don't really notice it in MMOs. Like no one's going to give you a pat on the back, but that's your role, is to try and guarantee success, whether it be in dungeons or whatever. And I'm like, how do I make myself useful here? And I'm trying to figure it out because I'm not quite sure what's going on. So I'm trying to figure it out. Is like, do I move to the west side? Do I stay here? How does this work with these turrets? And how do I melt away these layers of slime that are clearly blocking our way? How do I do all this stuff? And I'm trying to figure it out and muddle it through as people are barking orders and stuff. And I'm like, wow, the chat is a frenzy with people trying to organize things. And then we failed the event. The event failed. And suddenly, all 4 doors opened because the event was over. And just everybody from every corner of the city just piled together and were exploring and doing stuff. And that's when it started to dawn on me. I've been doing this wrong.
Yep.
I've been doing this wrong. Because I came in with the mindset of other MMOs, when new content and expansion comes out, you kind of work through it, all of it. You see all the new zones. You just kind of get introduced to some features. And then at the end of the story, then at the final zone,
you're part
then
of the world,
game
regardless.
opens up with its end game. That's when it kind of blossoms. It's like a mushroom, essentially. You have this thin stalk that kind of shows you where to go. And then at the end, it just balloons out into more stuff. That's not how Guild Wars 2 works. And I should have known this. I should have known this because that's how I felt playing the base game. I remember distinctly on our first day of this project in Guild Wars 2 saying the game isn't pushing me to do anything. because you can do anything. If you want to stay,
which is, by the way, a very positive thing and a very negative thing in my opinion. The game isn't pushing you to do anything, so you can do everything, but because it's not pushing you to do anything, you don't even know what's out there, and it's kind of like sometimes thrown at you, and you're like, I don't even know if I want to do it right now, and you have to actually like to find things to do because the game is really, I don't want to say it's bad at introducing content to you, but like for example, nothing introduced me to fractals. I just knew it's there. Nothing introduced me to strikes. I knew it's there. There's no like quest from like throughout the main quest that can introduce you to these mechanics, to these things. It's like, you know, have a quest that throws you into a fractal with a group of NPCs, and then it's like at the end of the quest, it's like you can gather adventurers to do this, whatever, to do the harder challenges or something like that, right? There's no introduction to any of the content that is in the game, so you have to explore on your own. And I feel like that is a very bad thing because then you have to use outside sources to find out what you can actually do at the end game. Right, I think Asmongold keeps hammering this point where it's like if you have to use a third party to find out information about the game is doing a poor, like this is not a good design, right? You want the game to introduce you to all the things that are possible and later decide what you want to do. I'm not saying it has to force you to do these things, like for example, like how World of Warcraft does, but I feel like it should at least introduce you on like the lightest scale. And then you at least know if like this is something you're interested in.
First 2 zones and level to the cap, you can do that if you want to. Or you can go and see every zone and do a little piece of the pie. You can do whatever you want. The story is kind of showing you where to go. And Guild Wars 2 has taken this approach that, hey, you're already level capped. Every single zone here is designed to last forever.
Yeah, but also you're level capped, but some zones are locked behind the story. So you still have to do the story, which is fine. I feel like you should want to do the story and you should do the story. But the content is also blocked behind the... So it's like, okay, so here's the thing. Let's say you go into the first zone, right? And there's like all this content you can do, which you don't know about. And by the time you find out about and all that stuff, you finish the zone, you go to the next one. The next zone has completely new content and completely different content that you can do, right? And you're like, you have to find out about it, which is not great, right? Because like literally like Heart of Thorns, the masteries for like, it's the easiest example. The masteries, you don't know about them until the story is like, oh, well, you can't continue because you need the mastery, right? But it's like, you didn't know about this mastery before, so at least the story introduced you to this mastery, but everything else in the zone, the story doesn't, right? So
from the start, there's no just showing you the zone and then you'll come back to it later. You could stay in that first zone forever. But the problem was, of course, I'd played the Living World series since then, and I'd kind of forgotten that because the Living World stuff is very story-focused. It's very on rails. It's very linear. And so I'd forgotten that aspect.
I did like all the Living Worlds more than I liked Heart of Thorns, but Path of Fire is a lot better in that regard. However, Path of Fire still does that, where it locks some areas behind story, basically.
Of Guild Wars 2. And also, I don't have the benefit of actually playing Guild Wars 2.
Not as much, though. Not as much. Path of Fire is still, I believe it's still more accessible overall. Even if you don't do the story, you can go to more zones and stuff like that, and there's more things you can do. But you're still technically, to an extent, locked behind the story, which is fine, but...
On a day-to-day basis, after I've completed the main story and the main campaign and stuff, I haven't done that because there's so much content for me to consume, in which case I would have understood how these zones were likely to work. So I did something I've never done before. I said, I'm going to go back. I'm not going to push forward, even though the story is telling me I can go on and do other stuff. I'm not going to do that, actually. I'm going to go back to Zone 1. I'm going to start again. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to come into this with fresh eyes, with a fresh perspective, and see what this zone is about, because this zone is already at its end game level. I just didn't appreciate that at the time. So that was the next mission. I spent the next 6 to 7 hours just in Zone 1 of the expansion, and good God, was it fun.
Yep.
Once I understood what was going on, and how to unlock all the things that were on this map for me.
And this is to say to my previous video, like reacting to Nixium's dumb take, where he says like MMOs don't do leveling. This is essentially leveling without the levels. You explore the zone and all that stuff. This is essentially what it is, because you're not in a rush for the end game. If there's no rush to the end game, right? As soon as he shifted his mentality, that's like, well, I'm already in the end game. Everything here is end game. And this is probably one of the best things that you can do with horizontal progression. End game is not going anywhere because it's horizontal. So you can take your time enjoying the world and knowing that, well, I'm not limited on time. I could get to this point at any, like, I can get to the end game stuff at any point. The only stuff that I don't like is that there's things that are like crafting. You're limited to like one craft a day for the, what do you call it? For the ascended gear. I get that. I don't like it, but at the same time, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. Ascended gear is really just there for a very specific content. Everything else you can still do with just exotic gear, so it's not that big of a deal. It gives people who are the min-maxer or like who want to have the best in slot gear, it gives them also something to do. So I feel like it's a very middle ground thing that is okay overall. Just because I don't like it, I can't, it's not that I can't appreciate it, right? But yeah, this is probably one of the strongest things that horizontal games can do, which is, yeah, you're already max level, bro. Just, you don't have to rush to the end game. You don't have to go and find the new raid. You don't have to go and find the new strike. Just enjoy the game.
For me to do.
There's no rush.
I don't think I've ever seen a denser zone of content
talked about too much
than the Verdant Bank. And I haven't gone to the second zone yet. This is just my first experience with the expansion.
Land right on it. Angle was slightly to the right if I get branched.
Oh, okay. I thought he was going to run out of the thing before.
Get the correct height.
Good job.
Height's good.
Nice. Nice. Oh.
3, 2, 1.
We need to rescue the noble.
Get in! Come on, baby! Woo!
And this, in my opinion, is more fun than how the glider, the slowest fucking glider, that is fucking bullshit. This is way more fun and way more, what do you call it, satisfying than whatever Dragonflight added to WoW with its racing. The racing are fine, don't get me wrong, they're okay, but like this I find way more fun. It's so much more fulfilling. I would not see anyone stand up and, you know, be in ecstasy. Sorry, that word stuck with me because of Diablo 4, one of the quests. But I would not see anyone being this happy about a Dragonflight race, unless you're racing other people, maybe. But like, he's doing alone. Imagine the amount of fun he would have if he was competing against other people.
Woo!
Which
Easy
is
game!
how Chocobo was and stuff like that.
Easy game!
Shit.
He nearly shaved a whole fucking second off it. Yeah! Oh, fucking get in there, baby!
Yeah, 159? He did. Wow. Look at that shit. 159.3, I think. Woo!
Me. That was the most optimized shit we've done in ages. 159.3, buddy. 159. We had time to spare. It's so dense and so vertical in design that there's what, three distinct planes up on the top of the canopy of the trees.
Sorry. When he said vertical, he meant like the map, not the progression.
The midland and down very low in the valleys. But there's a ton of places in between that need to be seen as well, with all things going on. And then you got Guild Wars 2 players have had Razageth for years. For literally years, because I was eventually able to get onto the choppers. I could start using the bouncy mushrooms. I could start gliding and stuff properly. And so I took part in this meta event, which then was like, right, now the choppers are here.
Oh, he did
that
the meta
takes you
event.
up to massive world bosses, the Patriarch and the Matriarch, where we're on top of giant spires of towers, fighting enormous dragons, and we're hanging on the edge of the platforms to find eggs, and then we're doing bombing runs with our gliders over the top of the dragons.
Look how many players, by the way, look how many players are still doing. How old is Heart of Thorns? How old? When was it released? (2015). 7 years, basically. 7.5 few, right? 7.5 few years. It's the same fucking content. Look how many people. Show me this many people even near Tomb of Sargeras, let alone inside Tomb of Sargeras, which is one of the better raids that they released. Throne of Thunder, the best raid WoW has ever done, and Ulduar, one of the best raids. How many people are actually in it in retail? 0? 1 maybe doing a MOG run? Yeah, this is the magic of horizontal progression. This is why I'm a big advocate of more horizontal progression in games. Make all that shit more relevant. And I know WoW is trying now. They're reintroducing all dungeon to Mythic Plus. It's not the same. It's not the same at all.
Everybody floods on top.
It's similar.
It's
not the same.
Throwing you off in the big Razageth style, getting back in and fighting it. It's like, okay, that's one of like...
Sorry, let me clarify why it's not the same. It's not the same because the 4 dungeons, for example, the 4 old dungeons, they're going to be they're in the Mythic Plus rotation, are going away with the next patch. Right now, the content is forced on you. It's not by choice. This is by choice. That is the difference. By choice, look how many people are here.
Like 5 bosses. Now we've got another one to go and do. So everybody get here. I joined a commander's squad who was leading his troops across the battlefield, assigning them to different camps to make sure we got the absolute mega bonus reward. Which boss are we all going to next? And just like any proper true MMO, we're all flooding to the locations to deal with these enormous and deadly bosses that are so well designed that they should be...
Stuff like this is why I said in my original review of Guild Wars 2, if there's a next Exodus in WoW, which I believe there will be, Guild Wars 2 will be the target, not Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy, kind of, I think everyone who would try Final Fantasy, or majority of people who would try it, already tried it, and they went back to WoW for Dragonflight because, oh, this is such a better experience. There's going to be a mass Exodus in 10.1 again. This time will probably be a silent Exodus because there's no outrage. But if there's any game that they would try out, would be Guild Wars 2.
The end game raid bosses and dealing with all that stuff and no lag, like played perfectly. It was really cool.
Yeah,
it was really awesome to experience that as well. Something I know is like there's like 200-300 people here.
Bro.
No lag, totally fine.
Absolutely I really need to get better Virtuoso. I cannot deal that damage. I mean, shit. I just got the Samurai class Sword Sworn. I crit something for like 60k. I was like, oh my god, this is so good. I literally like chopped one of the hero challenges. I chunked like half of his HP, and I can do it like every 10 seconds or so. Feels so good. Virtuoso, as fun as it is, I cannot do that. So a lot of consistent damage, but not like a bam, here's your HP gone, motherfucker.
And I had an amazing time in there. I also had an experience, and this is probably the happiest part of my day, was I had an experience I haven't really experienced in an MMO since vanilla World of Warcraft. Now, I just said we were playing with hundreds of people. I do the same thing in Final Fantasy. If we're doing a hunt train or something, the sky is filled with people, and it's beautiful and it's glorious. But I generally know what's going on. I'm usually taking part in it before it starts or being aware of it. And as a streamer, there are definitely people there who have come along because we're streaming and we're playing and we want to play together. And they're members of our community who've also come along on this journey with me. They're trying out Guild Wars 2 for the first time and we're kind of playing side by side. So there's that aspect to it. But while I was in the Verdant Bank and I'm doing the hero points, which are now group-focused missions, which is interesting because they were soloable up until this point, but now they're very much group-focused. I turn the corner and I just see a good couple of hundred people just flood past me on mounts.
Yep.
Doing stuff, nothing to do with me at all.
Yep.
I was hoping there would be... Oh, Jesus Christ. What in the fuck is that?
Everyone on the flying mounts. Oh, I need to get my flying mount, man. Look at that shit. Beautiful. Beautiful, man. This is what you want to see in MMO. Dead game, by the way. Dead fucking game.
That is a sight I have not seen before.
that game looks way more alive than any zone in World of Warcraft, except maybe during the first couple weeks for some events, like the Black Citadel stuff or whatever it was called, and people just sitting AFK inside Valdrakken, waiting for their queue or forming a group. This is actually like people playing the fucking game, not sitting somewhere and dicking around.
Oh,
look at that shit.
This is just MMO gamers doing MMO stuff in an MMO. And it
Amazing.
made me really sad for WoW's phasing technology. And I understand why they do the phasing technology.
Forget phasing technology. It's not even that. Honestly, with phasing or without phasing, for the amount of players that there is in WoW, it doesn't matter. Right? This is what people are doing in WoW. Literally. This is majority of the player base in World of Warcraft at any point that you think about. It's like, this is what most of the players are doing. They're sitting here, waiting to form a group and go and do an instanced whatever. Literally, WoW is becoming less of an MMO and more of a dungeon crawler. It's sad.
At the same time, there's something lost there because I basically reverted back to being like a 17-year-old, being stood in Ungoro Crater and watching 2 guilds on epic mounts, which I'd barely seen an epic mount by that time of playing the game, flood across Ungoro Crater to go into Silithus to fight Thunderen. And I didn't know that's what's happening. I just turned a corner and a stampede was coming past me of people in shiny, glistening armor on these things that I couldn't hope to afford. These heroes, these actual knights, flying past me on some sort of mission that
he can afford it, and it's like, it's not that he can't afford it, he just probably doesn't know where to afford it. I can't afford it because most of the stuff there, the way they look, was an afforded thing.
I had no concept of the level or scale that was available in this MMO, and it really sold me on the game. And I had that moment again, and they were doing a hero point train, and I'm sure it's a very average thing.
Sorry, he probably referred to like the heroes on stuff that he couldn't afford back in World of Warcraft, but this one,
to a lot of players. But if you're new to an MMO and you're like experiencing playing an MMO with thousands
and you
of people,
see that shit,
and you see something like that, it just gives you intrigue, it gives you mystery, it gives you desire to see what the hell is going on. And I had that feeling again while going back and replaying the Verdant Bank, and I'm so happy I did because eventually I kind of understood the zone. I was diving down, and obviously completing these missions unlocked a lot of stuff that was locked off, including the Adventures feature. A new feature of Heart of Thorns was the Adventures, which are just mini games.
Yeah,
I had no idea what they were going to be, like little side quests, little chain quests, whatever they might be. But no, they have that as standard. These are just mini games, which are hit and miss. I gold medaled them all. I had a lot of fun doing it. Besides, I think Burn the Thorns, which was not fun, and Chase the Bugs. I didn't enjoy that one. But certainly Flying Circus, I spent an hour and a half, I think, doing Flying Circus because I had level 1 mastery, which is just the ability to use the glider. And I believed it was doable. Stubborn Preach kicked in. Stubborn Preach exists. And I like that challenge. I knew if I went and got another mastery points, which I could have done very quickly, it would have made it too easy. And so I wouldn't have had anywhere near as much fun. Overcoming the challenge is the
I don't know if it would make it too easy. I know like the other one just lets you, it's like what, a boost to your glider or something like that. I don't know if it would still be too easy. It might be too easy for him, but like for most players, I would say not really.
Fun part, right? And I felt it was doable, and it was. I beat it after an hour and a half. It was beatable. As much as the entire stream was like, "This is just not doable, dude. Like, why are you doing it?" We managed it with some real heavy min-maxing to get across that finish line. To get it. I really hope ArenaNet was watching. They have been watching the streams. We've had the devs appear in game to say hi.
Oh, nice.
I really hope they saw that because it was just ridiculous. It was such a massive waste of time. I know that, but God, I had fun.
Doesn't matter.
I had so much fun doing
it. This is what people don't understand. Games overall, like objectively speaking, are a waste of time. But you just want to enjoy it. It's a game. You want to have fun. So as long as you're having fun, it's not a waste of time. So people saying that it's like, oh, it's a waste of time to get this 3-star, like what he's saying, it's a waste of time to get the 3-star. No, because you're enjoying it. So it's not a waste of time at all.
It doesn't particularly matter. And I explored this whole zone. So I've now played this expansion for about 14 hours, I think. And I would consider that I haven't even seen Zone 2. Yeah. As much as I have been there and I've seen the event, I don't know how we lead into it or do anything like that. And now I understand this expansion. And I now understand Guild Wars 2 expansions. I think they obviously might change this formula going forward. But goddamn.
What's beautiful about it, because he didn't even get to Path of Fire. And I don't think they're changing much. They're adding new shit and they're evolving shit. The mount system, for example, like I said in my review, I believe, of Path of Fire, the mounts, the ability to traverse areas and stuff like that, make the game so much fun. I need to get the Jackal because there are like games with the Jackal. Like there's like these puzzle zones with the Jackal. That would probably be very fun to kind of like understand which portal to go through to get to the next and then reach the goal. That is super fun. Is it a waste of time? Does it give me anything? No, but it's a game. It's a mini game. It's a mini puzzle that you can do in the game. And I think a lot of games are missing that. One of the reasons that I really liked some boss fights, specifically like the math boss fight in Final Fantasy XIV, not because it's a hard fight, but because of these small puzzles. Like it gives you like a quick calculation. It's like, well, it has to be divisible by 4, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 4 is divisible by 4, so you go to number 4, right? Has to be, it's like multiplicative of a 3, right? It's like it's 12, right? So like you go to 3, or like there's some numbers that's like also like that you can pick, like 2 or 3 would fit, or divisible divides 8, so it's like either 4 or 2 or whatever. It has to be whatever, right? Gives you like the dumbest math problem, but it's fun because it's a little puzzle in the game. It's like a mini game within the game, and it gives you so much enjoyment to do this. A lot more than just like, ooh, unga bunga, tank and spank, just attack and avoid abilities. There's some, like, these things add so much. WoW doesn't have that. I think Razagath fight is probably the closest they have, but WoW doesn't have it. It has, don't stand in shit, and attack the boss. That's literally like, you can sum down pretty much all the boss fights in World of Warcraft to these 3 things. Don't stand in shit, and attack the boss. Or attack the ads of the boss, right? That's it. There are no mini games. Like, all the bosses are essentially the same, except they are aesthetically a bit different. That's why I don't find a lot of the WoW content fun. That's why, like, doing mythic raiding in WoW is just not fun, because you have to make like, the hardest part about mythic raiding in WoW is the 19 people with you, not the actual content. The actual content is a joke. I was, oh, but you're using this and that. If you think objectively speaking, right? What do you have to do in any of these situations? Stand in this, don't stand in this, attack boss. That's about it, right? Without like too much thinking. It's like, it marks where you need to stand. It marks where you don't, right? It's not very much fun.
Refreshing way to look at an MMO expansion.
It's fun for the first time solving this, like, the timing and stuff, but I'm saying, like, repeatedly, it's not that much fun.
So refreshing. So just enlightening. It's like, hey, everything here is not just to breadcrumb you to the end, and then we'll put stuff in at the end for you. This is like, yeah, you're in expansion. Go to it. Have fun. It doesn't matter if you want to spend all day in zone where this expansion goes. I'm so excited for it. And of course, I'll let you know. But God.
Oh, wait, he didn't finish it then. Oh, so he didn't finish Heart of Thorns. This is just him reviewing the first zone. Oh my God, bro. I can't wait till he finishes the story. I really want to know his opinion when it comes to like the last fight. Probably the meta fight, because I haven't seen it. I understand what it is. I just haven't done it or seen it. I am really, really interested to see his final thoughts on Heart of Thorns. But yeah, I'm so glad he's enjoying it. Kudos. And yeah, I'm looking forward. And again, thank you, Lei, for letting me know that this video exists. I had a lot of fun watching this. Thank you very much. Anyways, that's the reaction. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next reaction, I guess, or the next video. Take care.